So this one's been a long time coming, but for some of these videos, I don't like to do them until I have a good idea of what I'm going to say. And I've been thinking about this one a lot, so without further ado, this is a character profile of Darth Vader. Now, to my mind, one of the things that makes a good villain is if they have a lot of the similar traits to the hero. Like, let's look at some of what I would consider the better villains in fiction. Gul Dukat in Deep Space Nine. There's a lot of things to like about Gul Dukat. He's extremely charismatic, intelligent, patriotic, charming, a military genius. But ultimately, he's an extremely narcissistic, kind of satanic figure. Palpatine's also very much like that. Well, Palpatine is a complete psychopath and basically just oppressed and raped the universe, the galaxy, to fulfill his twisted desire for power. He's extremely clever. He's able to delay gratification. He's able to play the long game. He's able to read people. He's entertaining to watch. Take one of my favorite villains, Pain from Naruto. Well, his methods are bad, and I guess you could say his goal is bad. Ultimately, within him, there's a jaded idealist. There's someone who initially had good intentions, but just kind of went worse and worse and worse over time. And part of what makes Darth Vader such a good villain is that's very much, particularly if you see the prequels. Now, a lot of people hate the prequels, but I really like them. Mainly Revenge of the Sith. I think whatever the issues with Revenge of the Sith, it was trying to make up for some of the bad things that the previous two movies did. And I think they did the best job they could. But you can really see in a lot of cases with Anakin what makes him such a tragic hero. And what makes him kind of a good villain, because a lot of his positive characteristics are what lead to his downfall. His very strong sense of justice, his confidence, his deep love for people, his desire to protect, etc. His natural skepticism towards what had kind of become a moribund Jedi Order. And ultimately, Palpatine is able to use these, which are largely good traits, and turn them against him, and to make him kind of fall into darkness and fall into his own resentment. And I think that's kind of the first thing that makes him an interesting villain, is he wasn't just born evil. It was something that kind of came about over time, and it came about through his bad traits. And this is very much, if you think about it, something with Satan. If you read Paradise Lost, there's a lot of... I remember someone called into Catholic Answers once, and they asked, does God love Satan? And they said he loves certain things about him. There are things to like about him. He's charismatic, he's a great leader, he's powerful, he's intelligent, etc. But to a certain extent, it was these traits that made him proud and led to his downfall. So that's kind of an important thing with the villain, is there's a motivation beyond them just being evil. Now, in Palpatine's case, the motivation is that he's evil, but Palpatine is an unstoppable force of nature. Palpatine is literally demonic. I remember when I first saw this movie, I was scared. I found Darth Vader pretty terrifying. I was like 8 or 9. And it's like, we're going to see Darth Vader's boss. And like, there's no way Darth Vader's boss can live up to Darth Vader. I mean, what kind of person is ordering Darth Vader around? He's going to be some lame disappoint. And then it cut to him. And you have this man who looks more like what I'd imagine Satan to look like than anything else. I was just like, oh my God. And I just saw it. And so Palpatine's kind of a force of nature. So whatever he's lacking, I guess, in kind of motivational depth. And even if you read Darth Plagueis, there was some he did have, to a certain extent, some noble characteristics that Plagueis took advantage of and led him to fall. So I guess what I'm saying is that's kind of the first thing that makes him such a compelling villain. He also maintains, I guess you could say, echoes of the man he once was. He still has a certain sense of honor, even if it's very twisted. Vader is very brave. He commands from the front. He is willing to put himself into direct danger. Like in A New Hope, he gets into his TIE Advance and goes out to fight the rebels. He goes and he duels Luke. If you watched Rogue One, he boards the ship leading his men. He's not a coward. He's not willing to fight alongside his soldiers. Now, portrayals of Vader vary very wildly throughout the extended universe and throughout the movies, etc. But a lot of them seem to think that while he hated Imperial officers as them being kind of bootlickers, he did have genuine affection for the 501st Legion, for his own men, because they were handpicked for their courage and skill throughout the Empire. Now, some variants have said that they were the only pure clone legion, and I've seen other ones that they were mixed, and some that they were entirely eventually selected. Whatever it was, there was an idea that Vader had genuine concern and respect for them, and their deaths hurt him to a certain extent. So that being said, that's kind of the background. So he does have certain sympathetic traits left, and at the same time, his fall is very tragic, and I think it's very believable. And it comes not out of him being a mustache twirling villain, but out of genuine good things that were corrupted. And that's kind of part of the story. He was the Messiah, he was the chosen one, and this satanic figure came and corrupted it. There's that really great scene in Revenge of the Sith where he's on fire, and Palpatine, who looks, like I said, like Satan, comes over and basically takes him away. And he's truly fallen into the burning pit. So I think to kind of get the full view of Vader and kind of look at his plot arc, we're going to watch his death scene, which might be my favorite scene in all of cinema. It's absolutely beautiful. So we're just going to go through this, and I'm just going to break it down and talk about it. So what I always found really interesting here, and I noticed this, and there's some people in the comments section who talked about it, you see all these people just running past him. You have the second most powerful person in the Emperor's de facto heir, and all the Imperial troops are just ignoring him. There's this random rebel guy, probably the most wanted rebel after maybe Leia, dragging the second in command of the Empire across the deck, and nobody cares about him. Everybody just ignores him. It's a very powerful scene, and I think it really kind of summarizes a certain aspect of Vader and just how alone he is, and we'll get to that in a minute. Let me see. I'm just reading a comment. None of the Imperial soldiers have even the smallest desire to help Vader or ask what's going on. They don't care. It's hinted in the earlier films that the upper echelons of the Imperial military look at Vader with scorn, suspicion, and contempt. He's ultimately an outsider, not one of them. Yeah, Vader held no official rank within the Imperial Navy. He was just the Dark Lord of the Sith. He was just this weird dude in a suit who had these mysterious powers. And he really despised them, and they despised him. So, yeah. And you have this beautiful scene of this imposing, huge, extremely strong figure who's been laid low. And here you have the only person who's here for him is his son, his mortal enemy, the man whose arm he chopped off. And I think it proves that love is more powerful than hate. Because Luke was ultimately able to redeem Vader by just simply loving his father. And that proved more powerful than all the Emperor's evil, than all the decades of hate. And if Luke hadn't have loved his father unconditionally, if he had have reacted to him with scorn and hatred, maybe Vader wouldn't have sacrificed himself to save him from the Emperor.
Luke, help me take this mask off.
But you'll die.
Nothing can stop that now.
And you can hear in his voice, he's completely resigned to it. And to a certain extent, he's at peace with it. Maybe, I think to a certain extent, Vader always longed for death, but his pride and kind of the last scrap of honor wouldn't allow him to kill himself or allow somebody to kill him. It kind of reminds me a bit of Alucard from Hellsing when he says only a man can kill a monster. I think to a certain extent, Vader's is kind of just relieved that he can finally die.
Just for once, let me look on you with my own eyes.
And here you have, I think one of the things I love about this scene is Vader, everything's crashing down around him. The Death Star, the Emperor's gone, his men abandon him. And he spent the last decades just committing countless atrocities. But ultimately, he did something good in his life. He has his son, his beautiful son, who's going to become a Jedi and is going to try and undo all the things he did. Despite all the evil in his legacy, he can die knowing he left at least one good thing for the galaxy. And here you can really see Vader just how upset, just how weak he is. This all opposing figure is just under it prematurely, because Anakin's not even that old. I think he's in his 40s at this point. He was very young when him and Padme had children, and he's prematurely aged. He looks like double his age. He looks like he's in like his 70s, and all along this appearances were very deceiving. And here you can see he's kind of has this very kind of nervous, kind of cringy expression. And one person pointed out that this kind of represents him fearing that Luke's going to reject him, that Luke is like everybody else going to cringe away when he sees how terrible he looks. So Luke responds with smiling compassionately at him. And it's kind of a nonverbal cue, as this person in the comments said, that all I see here is my father. That your twisted appearance doesn't change my love for you. And you can see Vader smile, because he has his son's acceptance. And ultimately, like I said, it's the one good thing he has here at the end.
Go, my son.
Leave me? No, you're coming with me. I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you.
And as someone pointed out, Anakin's life had been one long chain of people leaving him. And I think it really gives significance to Luke saying, I'm not going to leave you here, Father. I have to save you. Because, I mean, if you look at it, he never had a father because he was conceived through the Force. Qui-Gon took him away from Tatooine. He was going to raise him. He was going to give him a better life. But Qui-Gon Jinn dies. His mother dies. Obi-Wan, you can't really say he betrayed him, but Obi-Wan, the man who he saw as his brother and father, the man he loved above everyone else, in his mind betrayed him and left him in a crippled state. The other Jedi kind of, I guess you could say, betrayed him. Ashoka left him. Barriss betrayed. He during the war, he saw his men die around him. Basically, everybody who Anakin ever loved or cared about had left him over the years. Padme, the woman that he loved more than anything else. I understand that he force choked her and he kind of did it himself, but she too left him, and he was all alone. He had one friend during his time in the Empire, Lakoff, who was a very brave officer who Vader really admired because there's a couple times when Vader got into fights with like dark Jedi or soldiers, and rather than running away, Lakoff, who was Vader's aide, took out his blaster and helped his master out. Lakoff was so respected that Vader recommended him to serve as a cloning template. So Lakoff actually became the basis of some of the Empire's cloning lines because Vader held him in such high regard. But Lakoff, well, he didn't die, but he became really badly. Oh, sorry, Lakoff was also a family man who really loved his children and his grandchildren, and Vader, even at that point, really respected that. But ultimately, he basically saved Vader or helped Vader out by holding off some Dark Jedi with a flamethrower, and the Dark Jedi reflected it back on him, and he was horrifically burned, kind of like Vader himself. And he retired after that to go spend time with his children. He helped. I think I'm not sure if his son or whatever died, but he spent the rest of his life raising his grandchildren. So while Vader accepted that, and it didn't diminish his opinion, his kind of last friend abandoned him. Who did Vader have left? The only person he had left was the Emperor. Think about that. It's this terrible dependent relationship he has on literally Satan. But if you think about it, Palpatine was the only one left who actually knew who Vader was, who knew that he was Anakin, who knew him from before. He didn't have anyone else, I guess, he could talk to about the past. No, he didn't have anyone else who was close to him. And just think about how horrific and twisted that is. And to a certain extent, he still viewed Palpatine as his father, grandfather, as his mentor figure. And I think to a certain extent, Vader was a whipped dog. And before he met Luke, I don't think he really ultimately wanted to overthrow his master, because serving Palpatine was the only thing that really gave him meaning in life, even as bad as it was. And once kind of Luke showed up and he had something else in his life, he talks to him about wanting to overthrow the Emperor. You can kind of start to see bits of the man he once was.
You're ready. You're ready.
Save you.
You're ready. Look. You were right. You were right about me.
Which is, sorry if I get teared up, I always get teared up at this scene. But it's such a beautiful line. It's very much kind of the whole Christian redemption thing. Despite his lifetime of evil, it's never too late to repent. It's never too late to try to return to God, or in this case, to return to the proxy of God, the light side of the Force. And ultimately, it's love what saves him, because Luke is very much kind of a messianic figure. There's some Christ aspects to him. And he redeemed him through love, much as how Christ redeemed the world through love. And his willing to sacrifice himself, really, I think, kind of what was, yeah. But all the evil of the Empire, everything was helpless before the simple love of a son for his father.
Tell your sister you were right.
Now there's someone else in the comments made a really good point that in the end he was able to save the ones he loved. Well, the one he loved. The last person he had real emotion, real affection for, he was able to save at the cost of his own life. So I guess in a small way it makes up for Padme. it's kind of the final irony, I guess you could say, of his life. And now he finally gets to die, and I love that he becomes one with the Force.
Father.
But like I said, everybody left him, but the last thing he basically hears is his son saying he won't abandon him. So he at least had one person in his life who stuck by him until the end.
I won't leave you.
I won't leave you. The last words he hears in the world. And you hear the Imperial theme just kind of melancholically playing them out. And even then, he takes away he drags his father away to give him a proper burial. So that is kind of my analysis of Darth Vader and the scene that I think kind of brings his character full circle. It's something I've been meaning to do for a while, but I finally had a good thing to say about it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and